Only the biggest stories, only the biggest guests, and only the biggest opinions. This is AM 560, The Answer.
Good morning, Dan and Amy. President Trump yesterday in signing an executive order capitulating to the pressure foisted upon him by a hysterical media, Democrats, some surrender Republicans, his family members, a collection of badass former first ladies, and current one. He explained that, hey, don't you worry.
I got a plan.
We're going to keep families together, but we're still going to keep it tight on the border.
Thank you very much. We're signing an executive order. I consider to be a very important executive order. It's about keeping families together while at the same time being sure that we have a very powerful, very strong border, and border security will be equal, if not greater, than previously.
Yeah, I'm not so sure that's actually possible. In fact, I'm pretty sure that it's not. But maybe this is a step back for two steps forward when it comes to border security, particularly with legislation pending in the House. Despite rather dim prospects, at least the Goodlatte bill would make it out of the Senate.
Right, but he seemed pretty convincing. Excuse me.
If you're really pathetically weak, the country's going to be overrun with millions of people. And if you're strong, then you don't have any heart. That's a tough dilemma.
Well, so is essentially going back to the catch and release trick bag that he is in now with the signing of the executive order. There's a reason when he was before the NFIB, he said, I need Congress to give me a third option, something other than family separation and something other than the revolving door of catch and release because of the law and the Flores settlement agreement in particular. That's why he was imploring Congress to act, but apparently the political pressure forced him to act. And for more on this, we're pleased to be joined by David Harsanyi, senior editor for The Federalist, Federalist.com, author of First Freedom, A Ride Through America's Enduring History with the Gun, From the Revolution to Today. David, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Always a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Is it a cave by Trump, the executive order?
Well, I mean, yeah, I think clearly there was a lot of political pressure and internally some family pressure and other things that forced him to sign this, yeah.
And so what the implications of it, because if you don't get congressional action, whether it's the Cruz legislation or something along those lines, then you can talk about a zero-tolerance policy, but do you really have one?
No, you can't. I don't think you can have a zero-tolerance policy without changing the law itself. Perhaps there's a temporary fix, but in the end, I mean, you only have a certain amount of judges there. You only have to deal with adjudicating asylum cases. You only have a certain amount of people, time that you can deal with it, and you have all these kids that you're in essence going to have to, and families that you're going to have to release and hope that they show up. And I forget what the number is, but like 38 or 40% of them never show up at a court hearing. So essentially, you're just releasing them. And I think that. I'm critical of the president and the administration because I think if you're going to undertake this sort of policy, you should be better prepared for it, not just physically down at the border, which I just don't think they did a very good job, but to explain it to the American people, explain to them clearly why you need to, what is sort of constricting you from doing what you need to do.
So there's two bills before the House today that they're going to vote on. One includes giving Dreamers eventual path to citizenship. Why aren't the Democrats biting at this? What do they want?
They don't want anything. I mean, I'm pretty liberal on immigration, but Democrats don't want the law followed. They want catch and release. They know they use emotionalism here. And listen, I mean, it works. People don't want families separated. Fine, but what are you going to do? And you make a good point about Chuck Schumer, his hypocrisy. He says legislation's not the answer, but yet he's a co-sponsor of legislation on this issue, and he thinks you can rule by the pen now because Obama did it that way. Why would he want the president that he compares to Hitler to do that? But there are, of course, other problems here, I think, and sort of a dangerous underlying problem is that the left more and more basically calls any kind of border security fascist. I mean, they're creating an environment and creating a debate where anyone who wants to enforce the border legislation or wants to stop people from coming here illegally is now a fascist or a Nazi or whatever. And that's a dangerous thing to do in a country because then you don't have a country without a border. And I know Trump says it and it sounds simplistic, but it's true.
Well, and I'll tell you what, it's one thing for, kind of noted inveterate demagogues like Chuck Schumer and politicians to engage in this or empty-headed Hollywood celebrities. It's another thing when you see a former director of NSA, a former deputy director of national intelligence, a director of the CIA, General Michael Hayden, tweeting out comparisons to concentration camps.
Yeah, he sent out a picture.
I mean, this is why, it's stuff like that has a lot of Americans losing.
That midterms, though, again, I think these things sort of turn and blow back. You always see this sort of moral panic in the beginning, then there's pushback, and then it sort of evens back to where it was before, and I think that's going to happen.
Right, and all there has to be is another high-profile case of somebody in this country illegally, who's been in this country illegally a number of times, and who commits a violent crime and victimizes somebody, whether it's another person here illegally or an American citizen, another Kate Steinle, and there are myriad cases that are similar in nature, and talk about the government not being able to keep track of 2,000 children. They can't keep track of tens of thousands of felons that shouldn't be in this country. And that's part of the conversation, too, that the left doesn't want to have, but the American people do.
Yeah, it's a very good point. Now, people send me studies that show that, illegal immigrants have lower crime rates than people are here. Fine. But the very action of coming over here is illegal itself, and no one should be here illegally hurting people in that way. I mean, it's preposterous to even make that argument, and I don't understand it. So, every time an illegal alien somewhere in this country hurts someone, that's a failure of the government of the United States. The Constitution says you need to protect the country itself from out. That's one of its only jobs, actually, is to protect us from outside. So I'm not a huge, border guy or anything like that, but there can't be this kind of chaos. It's just bad for the country.
And what do you think about President Trump administration banning those who are seeking asylum because of domestic violence?
I don't know the legalities of that, but it seems to me that if we keep expanding the reasons that you can come here, that anyone can come here. And what happens is simply because of proximity, we have just a lot of people from one area coming, but I'm not sure why they deserve preference over people elsewhere in the world who suffer just as much and are in just as deep poverty and have just as much domestic violence going on. I don't know. I'm not I don't know the legality of it, but it doesn't sound right to me. It sounds like we're just expanding the definition.
Don't they have, their own countries have domestic violence shelters?
Well, the issue is asylum is about government oppression. It's not about private crimes.
Right. If we want to do that, I guess we could talk about Saudi Arabia or something, right? I mean, where you have sort of theocratic, institutionalized violence against women rather than places where people there are bad governments that can't control their own people.
Yeah, and in Iran, for the first time ever, women could go to watch the World Cup. We're making progress, huh?
So they're being punished.
That sounds like torture to me,
Exactly.
Actually.
That's more punishment.
You guys are...
Yeah,
why don't you... Oh, you don't like soccer either? Okay.
Soccer.
No. So someone called it communist kickball the other day.
That's about right. Yeah, so the best, the Simpsons commentary on it to decide which is the most powerful country on the planet, Mexico or Portugal. David Harsanyi, senior editor for TheFederalist.com, author of the book First Freedom, A Ride Through America's Enduring History with the Gun from Revolution to Today. David, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Anytime. Thank you.
And just so you know, Portugal did beat Morocco. Ooh, shocker.
Oh, Clash of the Titans.
Yes. And he joined us on our turnkey .pro answer line.
It's like a hot, steaming cup of information to start your day. It's Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.